the recording. All right, now that the recording's on, let's get started. So welcome to the session, everybody. This is another Scottish Testing Group webinar. Tonight we're going to be talking about AI-based test automation. It's the next generation of automation. I'm delighted to welcome Ferry Wolf from Tricentis, who'll be presenting tonight. Moving on, in terms of the agenda, I'm David Orr, so I'm one of the co-chairs of the group, and I'll be doing this introductory section. I'll then hand over to Soumya, who'll do the formal introductions and be the master of ceremonies throughout the presentation. She will then hand over to Ferry, who will deliver the presentation and the demo on the new Tricentis offering VisionAI, and then we'll come in to do the Q&A at the end and a little bit of wrap up and next steps, a couple of updates on the group. Just before I hand over to Soumya, I've noticed quite a few people who are maybe new to the group or haven't been to a session before. So this is just a little slide that we quickly run through to let you know who we are and why we're here. So Scottish Testing Group has been running since 2002, and we were actually the first community for testing that came to being in Scotland. Our original aim was very much focused on systems and software testing and that kind of sharing of excellence, but we are kind of looking at how we can evolve that. And a lot of our more recent sessions have been on more modern topics like DevOps, automation, and now AI tonight as well. So we need to be cognizant of that as we go forward, and that's something we'll continue to look to evolve. In a normal non-pandemic world, what we normally did was have two half-day workshops or half-day conferences each year, one in Edinburgh and one in Glasgow. But one of the great advantages to these virtual events is we've been able to have a wider audience here. So we've had people like Ferry joining us to do the presentations, and we've had people from across the UK and Europe attending more easily. So that's been one of the real benefits. If you want to find out more about the group or interact with us, we are available on Twitter at Scottish Testing. We've got our relatively new website, scottishtesting.org. We're on YouTube. We have a mailing list, so you can subscribe to that on our website. And we do have a group email address as well, info@scottishtesting.org. And of course, if you're on the session tonight, then you do know that we have Zoom as well, because it's being done through Zoom. At this point, I will now stop sharing and I'll hand over to Master of Ceremonies, Soumya Ramesh.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Scottish Testing Group talk on the topic AI-based test automation, the next generation of automation. I'm Soumya Ramesh. I'm a committee member of Scottish Testing Group, and I'm a consultant with 2i Testing. I'll be managing the chat function for today's session and coordinating the Q&A feature of the Zoom call. So please feel free to post any questions at any point during the session. I'd like to now introduce our speaker for today, Ferry Wolf. Ferry Wolf is a senior solution architect within Tricentis and has over 16 years of experience in testing tools to support the test processes such as test management, test automation, load testing, etc. His passion is to make test automation as easy as possible across all the teams within organizations. To make it successful, it needs to be robust, maintainable, and usable by any kind of role. And now I would like to hand over to Ferry to elaborate the session. Please, Ferry, if you wish to take over now.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Soumya. Thanks, David. Good evening, all. Well, my name, as mentioned, Ferry Wolf, solution architect. Well, I'm based in the Netherlands, but I support all customers and partners across EMEA. So let me start by sharing, of course, my screen. Here we go. Well, and as mentioned, we're going to talk around test automation, but also how we can help it running more into the future, where AI will be more in use. And as also mentioned by Soumya, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it into the chat or the Q&A. I always want to have an open, interactive session, so happy to answer any questions during the presentation. So these are, let's say, the 3 topics which I want to cover. So very quickly, I will cover who Tricentis is for the people who don't know which company we are. Then I will start explaining why our automation is so different than let's say traditional test automation. That's what we call model-based test automation. And I will just explain the concepts and very quickly show it, because then afterwards I can then also explain a bit more on how AI can even help you improving the automation much more. Okay, so Tricentis, originally an Austrian-based company, founded in 2007 by our founder Wolfgang Platz. He's still in the company, and he mentioned that during that time, all the current test automations current test automation tools out there were not able to do the job correctly. So he started building out his own test automation tool, which is called Tosca, and that has been growing and growing much more. And now, as you can see here, it's not an Austrian company anymore. We are now a global company, and besides test automation, we now support much more to support around the complete test automation processes. Working with a lot of partners, we also have a strategic partnership now with SAP, and also we are now being recognized by all the analysts as a leader in the test automation space. So a very quick, short introduction on who Tricentis is. So we are now not a test management company anymore, but a test tool company. And for today, I will start talking around the test automation. So as mentioned, how do we become such a leader? Well, as mentioned, we are going to talk around test automation, but we have much more to offer. So we have a test management tool to support in all the DevOps and agile way of working across teams, across projects, to have the full visibility and traceability. There is Live Compare, especially on SAP, to do smart impact analysis, to understand where are the risks when there are changes in your SAP environment, to really help you to get focus. Where are the risks? Where do I need to test? Also an area on packaged app testing, for example, like ServiceNow. Today, we're going to focus then on our test automation, which is called Tosca. We have NeoLoad for performance testing, where we also can reuse functional test case a la Tosca, again, to make it as easy as possible. And also we can help you on testing the data quality in your data warehouses. And surrounded by that one, there is analytics to have the full visibility across all your teams and projects and across all those tools. So it's not only automation, so there's a whole platform. But for today, we will focus on Tosca, which is our test automation solution. And nowadays, why is that test automation? Of course, everybody is moving into a more agile and DevOps way of working, to have faster releases, to deliver much more faster and more frequently, and so the IT can fulfill the demands of the business much more faster and much more frequently. But the story here is that IT and business are much more closely working together, and to deliver much more faster and earlier from IT perspective, but also to receive feedback much more earlier from out of the business. So you're really more working closely together. But if you are able to deliver as fast as possible, so maybe bi-weekly or weekly or maybe daily, so if you're able to deliver as fast as possible, but you will forget around the quality, right, then you're still delivering, let's say, bad quality in a fast way. So we believe that continuous testing is the key to be successful in an agile and DevOps way of working. Again, to have the full visibility and traceability, to do load testing much more earlier, but also to do test automation much more earlier and continuously end-to-end. And the way how we do that is what we call model-based test automation. And why? Well, what we see with the test automation is that still out there, a lot of testing is being done manually. And especially if you look in those packaged apps where a lot of business people are being involved, a lot of manual testing is still being done, and just a small part is being automated. But if you have a close look into the reason why this percentage is so low, it has to do with the following reasons. With all the current tools out there, you need to have technical skills to be able to create a script, to create a framework, to maintain, of course, the scripts, but also to understand what's needed and how does it work and how does it look like. And again, also from maintenance, if there is a new release, again, you're depending on the technical guys to update the scripts, to update the code, to update all the technical things. But as mentioned, we want to work more closely together with the business people. And those business people, they don't have anything with all the technical kind of coding, etc. And that's where that model-based approach comes in. And with model-based, we mean it is modular-based. We are only going to create objects once, so it can be helping you in high reusability, ease of maintenance because you only need to update one part, but also it is scriptless. We don't code, we recognize technologies. And that will help you to do faster creation of your test cases because you don't have to create a framework, you can directly automate, but also you can involve business people much more easier. So here you'll see a bit of the history on test automation. Of course, in the beginning, there were only those record and playback tools. You just record a script and run it when there is a new release. But of course, the disadvantage over there is that it becomes fragile, right? If there's a change in your screen, then directly your script will break and you need to recreate it again. So then as the next step, then there were the script-based tools. Of course, there are, for example, like a Selenium and other open source frameworks, but also maybe commercial tools where you had the possibility to record an action, which will directly create a script for you. But again, to make it robust and to understand, you still need to have all those technical skills needed to be able to read the script, to maintain it, etc. And that's then again where, with this case with Tosca, where the model-based approach comes in. No coding needed. We recognize technologies. And I will show you in a minute how it works. But also here from the model-based, still it is using some technical information to be able to steer your applications. And that's where we are now also going into the AI world. We're going to use more smart technologies to be able to make it much more robust as well. So let me quickly just focus on that model-based approach so you understand how it works, because then I can also later on better explain how the AI works in here as well. So here in the right side, you see an example of a script-based solution. In this case, it's a Selenium framework where there's a JUnit involved. But as you can see here, you must have technical knowledge, technical understanding, technical skills to be able to create the script, to understand the script, and also, of course, again, to maintain the script. And to create it stable, usually you then also program a complete framework around it. For the data-driven part, for all the reporting, if there is any error, how should it be covered, how are you going to import data, etc. A real developer task. So all the coding you saw in the right side was there to steer a browser. To steer that same browser with model-based looks like this. And nothing more, nothing less. So you don't see any code, you just see the steps, the fields, and the data. This does exactly the same as all the coding you saw on the right side to steer that same browser. But in this case, we can also do full end-to-end testing. So in one standardized way of working without coding, we can do full end-to-end testing cross technology. So if it is a web, API, databases, SAP, Oracle, Java, .NET, name it, it's one standardized way of working completely end-to-end, which is readable, understandable, and maintainable. And that's what we call model-based approach, test automation. And with a model, I mean, we're going to create a model out of your system on a test. And that's how it works. Here, you'll see your system on a test. Could be web, could be SAP, could be Oracle, Java, whatever. In this case, we don't have to code anymore. We scan your application. And when we scan your application, we're going to extract the technical information because we understand the technology and going to create a model, which is a representation of your system on the test. Getting all the technical information out of it, it will be saved in this, let's say, Lego block, which is readable for everybody. So no coding in there. And then business users can stitch all those Lego blocks together to build out a business process or an end-to-end test case. And finally, when that business process is there, the only thing they need to do is add the data. And when you run the test case using that same model again, it's going to steer your system on a test. So if there is some maintenance to do, you only need to maintain one specific model on one place and no technical information needed or coding needed, because the technical information is in the model. So let me quickly show you how this concept works, because then I will explain you how AI can help here as well. This is how Tosca looks like. We want to make it as user-friendly as possible. I'm not going to explain everything in here, but in this case, I already have prepared a test case for an automobile, because our use case for this demo is on a web page. Here we have a web application, which is a vehicle insurance application, where we can calculate the premium of a vehicle insurance. And therefore, we need to go through a few steps. The vehicle data around the car, we need to fit in data around the insurance, that's the person. We can select a product, and then based on that information, a price will be calculated. So that's our use case. So how does such a test case then look like? So here I already have prepared one. And there you'll see, when I open this test case, you'll see several steps underneath. And if you have a closer look in those steps, it's are the same steps as in our business process, in our application. It's readable. The business understands what we're doing over here. So if I open the first step, you will see 3 columns. There's an object, in this case a link, a value, what's the data we're going to send, a click, and an action input. So in this case, it's input of click on the link automobile. And then we will be in the next page, the vehicle data. Again, all the fields, all the data. We can make it data-driven, of course, and input. So as you can see here, it's all readable. And this is how an automated test case in Tosca looks like. You can run it as manual, but now you will see that the agent will already start and is going to execute all my test cases or my steps, right? So it's going to click on the link automobile, filling in all the values. Right. So no coding needed, it's readable, the test case. But in this case, we are steering HTML. It does recognize, hey, this is HTML technology, and I do understand what is the information and the properties, what is needed. So quickly, how do we come up with such a model? As I already explained, right? So this is the test case, completely end-to-end cross technology. So let's say we have a new test case, the automobile. It's empty. And the first thing, of course, Tosca needs to do, it needs to click here on that link automobile. So in my test case, I need to add a step. And that's where we have those modules, the model. And there you'll see I already have one building block available, such a Lego block, which everybody can reuse at any time. And it can be done by simple drag and drop. And then, of course, fill in the value. So in this case, you want to click on that link automobile. That's it. And this step is something I can execute right away. So high reusability, no coding needed, easy to use, easy to maintain, etc. And then, of course, the question, now I am on this page, how do I come up with such a model? So therefore, I'm now in my test case, I'm in my next step, my next screen. So I will look into my models, and then you will see there is no building block yet. And that's where Tosca is going to help you out. In this case, we are going to scan your application, like I just explained in my slides, with all kinds of technologies. And due to time, I will not explain them all. But then you'll see that an Xscan will start up, showing me all my applications which are running. And there it is. And there you will see that Tosca already recognizes this is HTML technology. And the only thing I need to do is say scan. It scans my page, gets all the technical information out of it, and we are done. So now I just, let me move a bit more like this. I only need to select the fields which I want to automate. By saying select on screen, and you will see here Tosca is recognizing the fields, the types, etc. Just click the fields, Tosca gets all the technical information, and we're done. And this is where in a minute, I will show you the differentiation also with AI. For example, if I will now focus, make it a bit more smaller so it fits my screen. If I will now focus on the make field here, so highlight, you'll see it, this is the field. You will see here in the right side that Tosca has captured all the technical properties, like a standard test automation. So if there is a change in my technical identifiers, I can easily rescan it, but still we must use those technical properties. And that's where VisionAI is going to help you. That's what I will show you in a minute. Right, so I now captured my model. I will say finish screen. The model has been saved successfully. And when I go back, you will see here a new building block has been created with a screenshot and all the fields. And now it is available for everybody. Again, by that simple drag and drop. And fit in the values. Right? So this is the concept of model-based test automation. We're going to create a model only once, no technical information is needed, and everybody can reuse it at any time.
Ferry, there's been a question from a member of audience.
Oh.
Naveen would like to know if you need to run the Lego block every time on every new release or every new build deployed on the test environment.
It's depending, of course, on the changes, right? So the Lego blocks, you don't have to recreate them. You reuse them in all your test cases. So if there is a change in your screen, you only need to update one such a building block by saying rescan. And then it's going to check my model with your system on the test, and then you can make some small changes. So from the technical perspective, we only have one single source of maintenance. And if this screen changes, say rescan, and all the test cases which we using that same building block will be updated right away. Single source of maintenance, speed of creation, and maintenance, ease of use. I hope it answers your questions. So just to prove, right, I have not script anything. Now it will execute this step. This is the core concept of model-based test automation. But as I just explained, we are still using, let's say, technical properties. And that's where, and maybe also this answers your question, Naveen, that's where also AI can help you to make your tests much more robust. Okay, so going back to my presentation, I just explained you the concept of the model-based. I see a question from Ivona coming in. At the moment, I have a set of questions. We are all tests stored. The tests are stored in a repository, which you can share, where you can collaborate. It can be executed on a pipeline. Yes, we can integrate with any build tool. It does support mobile, like Android, iOS, native apps, hybrid apps, and web. Yes. We can reuse functional test case in load testing. Sorry, out of scope a bit, but that can be reused. Can it work cross-product? Yes. Right. So we can do full end-to-end testing, cross-technology, cross-application in one standardized way of working, and also take care of your test data. In what language the scripts are written in the background? Well, we don't code, right? We want to make it as user-friendly as possible, so you won't see any code. If you really, really, really want to code, then there is the C# behind. So Tosca has been built on C#. Can we use variables? Yes. It can be fully data-driven. We can generate the data combinations, but for today, it's out of scope. And how can we know that AI will not make the mistakes? Thank you for the question, and that's something I will explain you right away. So thanks, Ivona, for your questions. Quick answer, also due to time, but let me focus now on the AI part. Okay, right. I just explained the history on test automation, where it was the record and playback, then there were the script-based solutions. I just showed you the model-based, but now let's go into the next area, on where AI is able to help you supporting that automation, which means we're not going to remove that model based, we're going to add AI to that one. So it becomes much more advanced. So we're still going to recognize all those technologies, but also being powered by AI. And here you'll see a bit of our, let's say, future vision on AI. So for today, we are going to focus on VisionAI. And VisionAI, as the name tells you, it's visual. It's all around UI automation. So we have built out a neural network. So it's not a buzzword AI, it is real AI. We built out a neural network which has been trained with more than 9 million objects. So then it recognizes all the objects on your screens. So also good to mention, it's not image-based. It really has been trained as machine learning, and the AI recognizes the objects based on the patterns it has been trained on. We're also going for self-healing, and that's maybe answering your question also, Ivona. If a test breaks with traditional automation, you need to fix your script. You need to change an XPath. You need to change an ID. You need to add some test data, right? In this case, we're also going to make self-healing AI available. And it is planned to be released shortly, which means that if a script fails, it can think of, okay, based on previous results, I'm almost sure this should be the object that you need to steer. And of course, you want to be in control as a tester. You want to make sure that AI doesn't make a wrong decision. So as always, you will be informed by, hey, do you want me to change it, or do you want to take the control over based on the AI results? And the third part is risk AI. And I already mentioned it a bit in the beginning, where we had live compare. So based on changes in your code, we can analyze. And on that analysis, it can then tell you where in your application are the risks. Where do I need to spend my time and resources in testing? Right? So that's the risk AI, and that will be also available soon. But for today, we will focus on Vision AI. So Vision AI is a real deep learning network. It's AI driven, has been trained with more than 9 million objects to really identify the objects you want to steer. And previously we called it NEO. That's why it says a Neural Optical Engine, NEO. So it can recognize all those objects without knowing which technology is behind. It's really looking at your screen like us as a human, how we recognize an object. And sometimes we as humans don't know which technology is behind. Well, VisionAI has the same. It recognizes your objects. In that case, we're also going to explain to VisionAI what it needs to be doing. So we can explain in natural language, click the login button, fill in user01 in the username field, fill in password in the password field, because VisionAI understands what you want to do and executes it. So then it will be looking at your screen, can I find a username field? And if so, then I will fit it in. And because it is visual, it runs on anything it can see. Again, we are interested in the technical properties behind, but if it's a web application, a .NET application, a Java application, but also if it runs behind a Citrix environment or a virtual machine, it doesn't matter. We don't need to install any automation within Citrix. No, we just steer it like a human eye. And that also enables you much more easier to do automation. And here you'll see an example. Here you will see how, there it goes, how in the top you see in this case a ServiceNow application, and in the bottom you will see what VisionAI sees in the background. So you usually those boxes you see here around those objects is something you don't see. But just to explain to you what VisionAI really identifies. So it scans 40 times per second your screen. And if there is a change on your screen in real time, VisionAI understands and recognizes those objects. Right? So it really becomes interactive as well. And here, for example, you see some of those percentages. That's the neural network. It works with probability. So the neural network looks at your screen and says, I am 99.9% sure this is the object you want to steer. Right? So it's the real neural network which makes the decision. And yes, you can also help still here. Yeah. So VisionAI takes the code out of it. So usually in traditional test automation and even with our model-based engines, we are still steering those technical properties. We need to have an understanding what is this case, the DOM structure in my web application. How does it look like to understand what I need to steer? Where can I find an object with XPath, with IDs? Again, quite technical. So here you will see some DOM structure, which well, I won't say confusing, but you have to have this understanding. To be understanding, there is a drop-down list over there. With VisionAI, we don't care around this code. We just look at the screen at this object. And then VisionAI understands, hey, this is a drop-down list of the current and recent insurer, which I need to select a value out of it. So no coding needed. It's understandable for everybody. And as mentioned, we can also explain to VisionAI. So here in the right side, again, you'll see our vehicle insurance application with a drop-down list on the number of seats. So we don't need to scan it anymore. Well, of course we can, but we don't need to have those technical information. We just explain to VisionAI, select 5 from the number of seats. That's it. VisionAI understands, it's going to look at your screen, understands, hey, this is a drop-down list with the number of seats, going to click and execute. This also enables you to create automation even if an application doesn't exist. Based on a functional design, we can already describe how the test should work. And when your application is ready, we can directly run. And that's something I'm going to demo in a second. So what problems will it solve, right? It's not just a tool for fun, we want to help, right? And these are the 3 main topics. So fragility, know-how, and speed. And fragility has, of course, to do with breaking of the tests. And so if there is a new release, a new change where IDs have been changing, or maybe you're running on a generated web page based on templates, all kinds of dynamic fields, well, that's no issue anymore because we're looking at your screen. So if there is a new release, your test will still work. And also here, there comes the self-healing part, which I will explain also in a second. Well, know-how, I think that's quite simple. You don't need to have that technical information anymore. And my personal favorite here is speed. We can go shift left, but with AI, we can go extreme shift left. Something I will cover right now, on those 3 points. So fragility. Here you'll see 2 drop-down lists. And let's say there's an old technology and a new technology. Still the same drop-down list with the status where you need to select a value. But in the background, there is a complete different technology behind. So if a company decides, hey, let's go for a new modern technology, probably you need to fix all your test automation because the classical kind of code has now been replaced by the new modern HTML5 kind of coding. So you need to fix all your automation. But with VisionAI, it doesn't matter if the drop-down list looks like this or like this, it understands and steers. Another example, right? This is Salesforce, where we have an old Salesforce Classic and a new Salesforce Lightning. Both have the same field on the opportunity name. Again, usually you need to fix all your test automation, but with AI, it doesn't matter if the screen looks like this or like this, it understands and it steers. So if you have an upgrade of your application, your test will still work. So the machine sees like us and also will adapt like us. And that will also help you in that self-healing. To give you an example on that self-healing, on how it probably will going to work. So here in the right side, you'll see a sign-in box from, in this case, Microsoft. And let's assume in our previous run, there was the next button, but now it has been replaced by the continue button. So your test usually will break. Well, if that happens, then now VisionAI can kick in, or the AI can kick in. It's going to look at your previous runs, and with almost full certainty, right? It can say, okay, based on my previous identification, I'm almost confident that you're going to steer the continue button. Of course, you want to be in control. You will get notified, right? Or you can say, please adjust it, or please stop the test. But here, VisionAI can help you in fixing your tests quite fast and rapidly. The second one is know-how. So I can go quite fast on this one. We had the technology. It was confusing to steer that drop-down list. And of course, now nobody needs to understand that technology anymore, what's behind. So technical people can use it, business users can use it, testers can use it, because you're just steering the drop-down list. So by just explaining with those visual clues to VisionAI, it will understand. And now my favorite, and then of course you will see it also running live. Speed. In the beginning, with the whole DevOps way of working, we want to speed up. We want to release much more faster and much more frequent. So here you'll see an example of a sprint or a release. And let's say in the requirements, a story has been written. In this case, with some nice design. Now, usually when you want to do some automation on the UI, you always needed to wait until the application has been built with the APIs and it has been deployed. So then it is stable. And when your application is stable, then you are okay to do some automation. Of course, because then you don't need to change each and every time because it's still being developed. Well, to solve this issue already a bit, there is, of course, BDD. You should probably know it already, the behavior-driven development. So somewhere already in the beginning, you can describe the behavior, which is a starting point for the developers, but also which business people understand, and also where you can connect any automation, like a Selenium script. So that's already a shift left. But still, if you have this shift left here, you still need to wait until the unit test has been done, until the API has been connected, and still you needed to wait the full circle before your application is ready and available to also start with the Selenium test cases, because your objects are then visible and available. And this is where VisionAI is going to help. Based on your design and your definition, you can already build out your automation. And when the application is ready, you can directly press the play button and it runs. So I call this the real extreme shift left. Even if there has been not written any code on your application, we can already have finished our test automation. And let me show you. Here you'll see an example of a design, a PDF. So somebody has designed this, and this is how the application should look like when it is ready. Let's say a mockup. And based on this mockup, we can start building a test. Here in the left side, you will see the cloud-based version of VisionAI, and in a minute I will also show you the one in Tosca. But there you will see the same PDF document. And by just clicking the fields, you will see that VisionAI is going to build out your script in a readable way. Select BMW from the Make dropdown. So even if it's a PDF, it already understands this is a dropdown. So if I will show it live in a second. So by just clicking the fields, we can fit in the data, and in the right side, you will see here, my script is being created in a readable way based on a PDF. Right? So there it is. My automation is done already. And then the fun part begins. Let's give it a try. Give it a try run. So here I'm going to press the play button, and the script which I just created will now run on a PDF. It doesn't make any sense, right? The PDF doesn't have any functionality, but it's really there to check if it works. And there you see the mouse is moving, steering my PDF. My automation is finished. So then, of course, the developers are finally ready after weeks and months of development. So the real application is there. In this case, a .NET application. So based on that functional design, a .NET application has been created. I just press the play button, and there it goes. My automation works immediately. I didn't have to create any script. I didn't have to code. Based on my functional design, I already built out my automation. And when my application is ready, it can directly execute. So VisionAI helps you to create already automation much more earlier. But nowadays, and there you will see our demo app, nowadays it's all SaaS, right? It's new, modern, cloud-based technology. So there's an upgrade to a web application. Complete different technology in the background. Usually, again, you need to fix your automation. For now, it does. Sorry, my mistake. For now, it doesn't matter. You just click in the left side. Again, we just have the same script. We click the play button, and there it goes. Now it runs on web. And then the bigger challenge will be, how does it run behind Citrix? Maybe you know, if you have Citrix, it can be a real challenge to have automation in there. Now it doesn't matter. I have the same application running in Citrix. I just press the play button, and there you'll see the same script now runs within Citrix. No technical difficulties anymore to run it. And that's what I call that extreme shift left. So before I will go into another demo, are there questions? I do see questions coming in.
There's plenty.
Okay. Is this a licensed tool? Oh, 1 second. Let me answer. Is this a licensed tool? Yes, we are a commercial company. Yes, so there's a license, but it's a what we call floating concurrent license, and you will get everything included, right? So you have all the functionality available. Will this work on CRM systems like CRM Dynamics, Salesforce? Yes, and especially Dynamics, and more, let's say, the old version of Dynamics, for example, AX, which has always been a challenge in general to automate. That is a perfect candidate for AI. So we can steer any technology. Using this tool, can we schedule a batch to run a set of automated scripts when needed? Yes. Tests can be triggered by any build tool. It can be completely part of your development cycle. It can run tests unattended at any moment. No problem. More sets of questions. How can we perform the load testing? Can we include database? So sorry, Ivona, for load testing. Today, it is not the focus. I don't have the time, but happy to cover your questions maybe then offline. Can Tosca be integrated with ADO? Yes, we can integrate with Azure DevOps, no problem. Are you going to cover the reporting part? If you have time left over, I can also explain the reporting, because of course you want to know when your test runs unattended during the night, for example, what will be the results, if we have time. Another question, would it also capture the evidence when a test is failed or passed? Yes, that's the same on the reporting. You want to know exactly in detail what happened when a test fails or passes. And if it fails, you have the screenshots, you have the evidence, it's all in there. And how to input data with multiple data sets. It's fully supported in Tosca. We can also generate your data sets. You can connect in Excel, external sources. It's all flexible. But again, for today, we don't have the time to cover that one. There's also something in the chat.
Yes, there's a question on the chat area as well from Ivona.
Chat. I don't see my chat window.
That's okay. I can read that out for you if you wish.
Here. It's behind the other one. Here it is.
Is Tosca based like RunnerX in hijacking the mouse and keyboard so they are not usable? How is the test suite scalable, and how can it run in parallel for multiple tests that take a long time to execute?
Yep. Right, so we're simulating real end users. For example, if you're really running let's say a native app, right, we need to simulate that application. But for example, with web applications, we can also run headless if that's needed. Scalable is for sure possible because we run on a common repository, and you can also run tests in parallel using what we call agents. So you can install agents on multiple machines to run in parallel. So you can be scalable with your testware across teams, across projects, etc. But also you can be scalable in your execution.
Thank you for taking all the questions. I believe we've exhausted all of them for now. Please feel free to carry on.
Again, focusing on AI, that's our goal for today. What if, so we recognize all kinds of objects, but what if the developer has created an exotic kind of tool? So you can also, let's say, train VisionAI. So here you will see an example of a table which has been built out in all kinds of those div elements, right? That's a new modern way of HTML, right? We as a human see this as a table, but in traditional test automation, you need to understand this whole structure, you need to code, etc. So now in this case, we can also train VisionAI to say, okay, you need to identify such an object like a table. So here, and this is already the Tosca way, so I will show you already in a second how it runs in Tosca. But now it will capture your screen. We're going to drag a box around the object, right? Because it's visual. So we say to VisionAI, this is where you need to have a look into. And then in the top right here, you will see we can give it a name. So in this case, it's called the what you see is what you get table. And then also here, we can say what the type of object it should be. So we say, this is a table kind of object. And that's it. Okay, I can give my application a name, so I can find it back. And now when I will say save, then VisionAI will look again at your screen and then recognize this object. Hey, okay, this is a table, so I do understand where are the headers, where are the columns, the rows, and the cells, without doing any coding, etc. So VisionAI is now scanning my screen. And there you will see when I now select my object, it still recognizes all kinds of types. But then I can also say, this is the table. And here in the right side, that's why I showed you the scanning. In the right side, you will see already here, it recognizes all the fields, the columns, the rows, and the cells without doing anything. So the benefits, it's flexible, everybody can use it, no technical coding needed, developers can use it, testers can use it. You have that shift left, so based on the description and definition, you can directly start creating your tests. And that's something I will also show you in a live part, because then also I want to explain to you how the descriptive part will work. And of course, still happy to answer your questions. So again, I just showed you in the slides how it looks in the cloud, but this is how it then works in Tosca. So here I have my modules. And I have my applications. So there again, I have my PDF document, a definition. And in that same modular based way of working, I can just say to Tosca, please scan my application. And in this case, I will not say it's HTML technology or whatever, but I'm saying to Tosca, it's VisionAI. And then the way of working is exactly the same. So now at this moment, VisionAI is looking at my screen at this PDF. And there you will see the same results are there. And in that same way of working, I can say select on screen and just hover over the fields. And there you will see it's a drop-down list with the make. Even if it's a PDF, it understands the type of object and there's let's say a label needed. So I can just select all the fields and based on the mockup, my automation is already there. And also what I showed you in the beginning, when I now again select the make drop-down, 0 technical information. It just says, okay, it's a drop-down with the label make. That's it. No XPath needed, no IDs needed. It doesn't matter which technology is behind it. And that's why I also want to show you at this scanning part. Now there's no technical information needed anymore. So that's how you build out, by saying finish screen, you build out that same way of working. So there it is, my module with a screenshot and all the possible fields, which can be reused in the same way of working. So there it is. I already created the step with the fields. Click on run. And now again, VisionAI is looking at my screen. And there you'll see it's steering my PDF. So you can use it besides the traditional automation. You can also use the VisionAI itself. Then, of course, as showed before, we have maybe the .NET application, the real application. I have not changed anything in my script. Click on run. Again, VisionAI is now looking at my screen, and there you'll see it's going to steer again my application. New technology based on my definition, on my design, I already created my script, and it can rerun directly. And then, of course, we go into that web part. Same screen. Click and run. Complete different technology. I have not changed anything. And there you'll see VisionAI understanding still that same screen based on my design. And of course, I can continue with all those other technologies. But what if, and that's my last part, what if there is no design? What if I don't have such a PDF document where somebody has drawn something? Well, one, you can just draw it on your whiteboard, take a picture, and you're finished. That's an option. But also, you can just explain it. So maybe based on on your functional design, where things have been written out, you can also just write what needs to be done. So even if there's no images, no screens, no coding, we can already write our test case. So there you will see, and let me go back to here. I have the vehicle data. I just explained it without scanning anything. I just write it down, click on run, and VisionAI understands what I've been writing and tries now to say, okay, there is a drop-down list make where I need to select a value. And there it goes, right? So based on what I've explained in natural language, it also understands. And I do think this is the power of AI. No coding needed anymore. It recognizes all the technologies, no technical objects anymore. Your tests will become much more stable. You have that shift left where you can just, based on a mockup or a document, you can already build out your automation. Where's my slides? Okay, all right, that was it. So I think an hour. Let's see, are there any more questions?
I believe we have fresh questions.
Yeah. Okay, can we validate PDF content? Yes, in two ways. So we have, of course, you can use VisionAI, but as mentioned before, if you go into the scanning part, there's also the PDF. So that's also in there. I have a scenario. The user needs to be activated via an email address, a token, and then to proceed the steps of the registration. Can Tosca allow us to do such steps? Yes, and that's something we do see quite a lot. We can steer 160 plus technologies, including AI. So if you need to go from an email to a web page, to an API, to a database, or whatever, we can do a full end-to-end test, cross technology, capture data in one application, reuse it in another application. And that's by default information. We execute a test suite on multiple browsers, mobile devices at the same time. Yes, that can also be done. We want to have high reusability. You define your test case once, and of course, if you have multiple browsers, you don't need to change anything. You just say, run it on Chrome, run it on Firefox or on IE. Of course, on mobile devices, we can then directly run it on a mobile web browser as well. That's no problem. So high reusability of the same test cases. Very informative session. Thank you. I look forward on rewatching the talk, and I'm sure I want to learn more. Thanks again, please. Okay. Thanks, Leon. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Ivona, can we totally replace manual testing in Scrum, software development lifecycle, in Azure DevOps, in sprint and regression testing with the use of Tosca? Totally replace manual testing. Difficult question, Ivona. We can do a lot of automation because it is scriptless. You can run it as a manual test case. You can run it as an automated test case. Yes, you can replace it with AI, but I do think sometimes as a tester, you still want to see with your own eyes. Does it work? So I think that the question is in both ways. Yes and no, depending on your situation. Does it recognize CAPTCHA? Aha, there we are. Yes and no. If you have the CAPTCHA with a checkbox like I am not a robot, that can be done. But if it's the famous CAPTCHA, please select the fire hose, or please select the traffic lights, or the crossroads on the road, that's a challenge. Sorry. That will be a challenge. VisionAI has been trained on office kind of applications. Yeah. Sorry. I do something more in the chat as well, or not? Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Ferry. I think it's a fascinating topic for one, and really amazing that you kind of brought it out today. It's very, very interesting, and looks like something that will revolutionize test automation. This might be the future we are looking at. I have a question from my end, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So,
sure.
When you're at the starting point of bringing in a tool like that, what we typically do is something like a proof of concept or something that's kind of can be tested at a small scale. How do you propose, or how do you suggest somebody goes about that kind of activity? How best to kind of make a case for VisionAI to be brought into your current test automation suite and get the buy-in from stakeholders? That might be a bit of a challenge in some environments.
Yeah. Right. So I think that there are multiple questions. So one is, of course, the positioning. what does Tosca solve? And VisionAI not on its own, right? There's also the scriptless part, the high reusability, the ease of maintenance, the end-to-end, the scriptless, so even business people can use it. So there are a lot of factors in the tool which shows the benefit for an organization. And depending on their case, on their situation, their pain points, the goals they want to achieve, and then we're going to focus, hey, what is the thing we need to show, and what are the things you want to take into a POC, right? So for example, I'm running now a POC where a company is using an extremely old technology, extremely old, which is very hard to automate and to recognize. VisionAI just solves it. I don't need to investigate, and we can directly steer it. So this was an eye-opener for them. There was another application which is highly dynamic. It's not a real, let's say, official office application, but more like a in-house built kind of application. So we don't know the real technology behind. VisionAI recognized right away. So depending on the technology, the goals, etc., that's where we usually focus. What do we need to position? What do we need to demo? What do we need to do in POC? I hope it answers your questions, Sonia.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I think something I hope all the members of audience will take with them as a point to ponder. I believe we do have a fresh question on the Q&A channel.
Oh, yeah. Naveen, what level of training and support will be provided by Tricentis? Yep. So what we think is really important, let's say a tool is just a tool, right? But you need to be successful in the usage of a tool. So we are not going to say, here's a tool, thank you, bye. No, that's what we don't want. So we also have a PSO team. We also have an academy. We have customer success managers to really make you successful in using a tool in a company. And in that academy, there we all have all kinds of official trainings and certificates. You can follow them online for free if you want to. So if you want to get more familiar with Tosca and also, of course, then with VisionAI, you can already run those trainings for free on your own. So we have a complete plan and implementation to make sure that the knowledge is secured in your organizations, in your projects. So when, let's say, when we leave, you are able to continue.
Thank you, Ferry.
I do have a question as well, actually. So let's say that I want to start using this VisionAI tool and I bring it into my organization. So how long do I need to spend training the tool if I bring it in?
Oh, you mean training VisionAI?
Yeah.
Not needed. It runs in our cloud. Let me check if I have that slide here to explain you a bit more on the architecture. 1 second, I do have it here, I guess. Where are my slides? 1 second. Yeah. There we are. Just a high-level simplified architecture. So the first question I had the same when this was introduced in a company. I was like, wow, AI, you need to train it. Then you must have a beast of a machine, right? A beast of a PC to do all the calculations and to do the training. And then they say, no, we do it once. So it has been trained by more than 9 million objects, and it runs on our cloud. So all the power out there, all the power you need to have for identifying and understanding and the training, that's being provided by us. And of course, then all the alarm bells will go off. Oh, there will be no data sent out the company. We don't save any data. This is only needed. So we look at the screen on your application, and the neural network just looks at the screen, let's say in memory, sends back, these are the type of objects I recognized, and removes it. Right, so it runs in memory and it's only used for identification of the objects, in this case also the text. So you don't need to do any training. What I showed you in the video, you can, let's say, train on specific objects yourself, on your own applications in your company, and that will be stored on your personal tenant, only for you available. And why? Because if you're collaborating together in a bigger team, then also other teams can benefit from that same training you have done in VisionAI. Does that answer your question, David?
It definitely does. I think that's a good point, that one, if we can get started quickly without having to do that training, because that's one of the things that keeps coming up when I'm feeding about AI or looking at other webinars or whatever.
It's just like this. I showed you. Yeah, just say scan the application, select VisionAI. That's it. So it's one standardized way of working. There it is, VisionAI, and then it looks at your screen, and our neural network will look at them and say, these are the objects I have identified for you. That's it.
Thank you.
Great.
I don't believe we have any questions from the audience at the moment. If I may pose a final one, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
What would be, in your opinion, the biggest risk of bringing AI into test automation or testing in general? Is it foolproof? I know you've spoken that it's a slightly different topic, and trusting AI might be the biggest barrier to accepting AI.
Yeah.
Because how do you know the test design would be foolproof or test execution would be without flaw, etc., etc. When you give the control to the machine, how do you trust it, kind of a thing? What according to you is a risk in this? Is it completely risk-free?
Right. In this case, I had to give an example here on VisionAI. It could be that you have, let's say, a drop-down list, but VisionAI will tell you, no, it's not a drop-down list, it's an edit box, for example. Could be. Right. Then, of course, you can explain. So in this case, if VisionAI works with a probability, it has been trained, it's still being trained more and more. So yes, there is a risk that in the next run, maybe VisionAI will tell you like, hey, I cannot find this field on your screen, because it works with probability. So then you get in your report, I was not able to find this object. Could be. But you will always get notified. I think as a tester, you still need to be in control. When has something been failing? Does VisionAI still recognize the object it should, how it should recognize the object? So you still, when you scan the application, it still captures the object type. Is it a drop down? Is it a link, a button, an edit box? So that's something you can still control yourself. But yes, I do see it not as the overall solution. VisionAI will replace all the test automation. No, I really see it as an additional technology, let's call it like that, on the current test automation.
Thank you very much. It was a fantastic talk, actually. We've gained so much, and honestly, I think it'll potentially solve some of the top problems with test automation. One being kind of becoming a developer almost to be able to test automate. That's a big kind of challenge for a lot of testers who kind of might not want to go into that space. So absolutely, I think this is bound to bring in such a big change in the way we look at test automation. So thank you very, very much, Ferry, and you've been very patient with all our questions. Really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you for your questions. I was really happy to answer them. So I hope it was all of benefit for you, and I hope you found it all interesting. So thank you for your time.
Many thanks. David, over to yourself.
Yep, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Ferry. That was really good, a really good session and very interactive. It's actually really nice to see a bit of a demo there of something that's not something that we've really done previously too much. So it's good to do that. Just very quickly, some final steps around where we are with STG before we drop off. So we don't have any more events scheduled between June and August. We're essentially taking a short summer hiatus. I think with everybody now having the chance to get back out and about with the easing of restrictions, I think that's a sensible move for us. But we will look to start scheduling events again in September time, but we don't have anything confirmed. We are moving on to a vlog series, and we'll be starting that with Isabel Evans in the next few weeks. So you'll start to see those coming out on YouTube and the website very soon. One other interesting thing that we're doing is Soumya's in discussions with some of the organising committees for other major conferences. So we're hoping to get some free tickets and look into running some kind of competition for the community where we could win those tickets. And also further information around all of the above will be promoted through LinkedIn, Twitter, email, and the website. If you do want to get in touch with us relating to any of the above, or you've got any suggestions, then please do feel free to get in touch at info@scottishtesting.org. There are a number of ways that you can get involved with and support the group, so you can continue attending our events, you can interact with us on them, you can present at events, you can share the word, spread the word for us, help us promote the events, you can write a guest blog if you're interested, you can publish a vlog, or you can continue the conversation on social media. If you do have an idea, then again, please do feel free to get in touch with us on any of the channels we've discussed tonight. And finally, a big thank you again to Ferry and everybody from Tricentis for running this event. It's been a very, very good one, and we look forward to welcoming everybody back in autumn. And thank you very much for attending. Have a great evening, everybody. Speak to you all soon.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ferry.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.